everybody, it's your crazy fangirl Shy. We hope you guys are having an amazing day. So today I'm going to be reviewing Aladdin. I know I've said some things about this film, specifically because I've said that I've had really low expectations, that it doesn't look like a great film, and that there were a lot of dislikes I had. And I hate to admit this, like I do really, but I really enjoyed Aladdin, like a lot. And it really was a great film, and it really did justice to the original animated film. But I will say this, that I realized after watching it that this film probably won't be for everyone, specifically for the audiences that actually grew up with the animated film, and I totally understand that. But overall, I did enjoy this film, but that's the notion I got, that everyone who comes and watches Aladdin will not have the same reaction to it as some people do. But for now, we're going to jump straight into my review, and we're going to start off straight away with the cons, because to be honest, I only had 3 points that really were like kind of major ones that kind of stuck with me after watching the film, but there isn't really too much. It's just like a few pointers that I was like, yeah. The first one is that, okay, I love Guy Ritchie. He is an amazing director, and I've loved most of his work that he's done. Specifically, one movie that I really enjoy is called King Arthur, but that film was so good, and I love Guy Ritchie's like vision. It's very unique, his film style, and I absolutely adore it. However, in this film, there were a few scenes that I felt very jarring and was just like, ugh, like not disorientated, but it was just like cringy sometimes. It was only one major part, which was one jump ahead in that whole section, was just very cringy, specifically the parts where it was like sped up. I didn't really specifically like that, in my opinion. I found it, yeah, like very jarring, and I didn't particularly enjoy it. However, the other techniques that he did use in this film were great, and I absolutely loved them. Another point that isn't too major, but it was just because of the city of Agrabah, just didn't feel as run down as it was in the animated film. Like, it just seemed too clean for my liking, like not as like broken down as we saw it in the animated film. We only saw like a few broken buildings. We didn't see too many that were like kind of like cracked or like broken. Like when you go back and look at the animated film, there's lots of scenes where it's like these broken down buildings, broken down like areas of the city. Apart from the castle and the palace was beautiful. I absolutely loved that. So that's why I'm not touching that, because they did that very well. But I did expect Agrabah, like as the city as a whole, to be more broken down. So that was one thing that kind of bothered me. Like I said, the cons that I have for this film aren't too major. It's just very like picking like the really small minor details that I didn't really like, because to be honest, I really did enjoy the film. However, I did want Agrabah to look a little bit more broken down. However, I will say that I did love the construction of Aladdin's home. That was so beautiful. I really liked that. And the last of these 3 points was, at times the clothing felt wrong, like almost like Bollywood style, and particularly for me, like I always want like the ethnic part of movies to be particularly right, and a lot of people actually thought this as well, that at times there was a bit of a Bollywood style instead of like a Middle Eastern style, because obviously Aladdin and the whole movie is supposed to be set in the Middle East and like Arabic, etc. And just it just at times it felt like some of the costumes were just a bit too on the Bollywood side of it, in my opinion. However, a personal opinion of mine is that, well, I personally didn't totally like this, but I do accept the new costume for Jasmine, like obviously the teal like bodysuit that she had on. That was nice. However, like I think there's just something special about the original that I really liked, and just like I thought that they would bring that original style back for her, but they didn't, which is understandable. However, like those are the things that I like personally from the original film, that, you know, sometimes they don't change, or they do change. So I was kind of sad about that, but at the same time, pick pointing like the really small minor details. Okay, now we're gonna jump straight into the character stories and the acting that I absolutely loved, which as a whole, the whole cast did an amazing job. But let's just jump in straight into Will Smith's performance as the genie. Now, everyone knows I had like I explained this multiple times, that Genie's performance literally takes up most of the film and is what carries the film mostly from the original film, especially because it was the amazing Robin Williams. However, I will say this, like, from the beginning when I found out Will Smith was playing the Genie, I was worried. I was like, oh, like, he's an amazing performer and an amazing actor and comedian. However, I was worried that either he was going to play it up way too much, or he was going to just copy Robin Williams' performance and put it into the movie, which isn't really the best, because it's like, it's just like, no way. Like, you cannot, like, replicate such a performance. However, Will Smith brought his A game and totally made the performance his own. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I loved him as the Genie, totally. It was an amazing performance. He made the role his own, and I'm so glad he did. And he brought so many unique new traits to the Genie, which obviously, like, we all expected that to happen. But when I remember when watching the film, I was like, it was just a great experience to see him playing the Genie. It was very well done, and thank God Disney fixed all the little mishaps that happened with the CGI. I think mainly because of the fact that when the trailer came out, they knew that obviously it would either go good or bad, and instantly they went and fixed every single, like, detail that they thought was wrong. And watching it on the big screen, because I went and saw it in, like, IMAX, so I was like, okay, they fixed it, that's fine. I was so happy. The main worry that I had was the entrance of the Genie and Never Had a Friend Like Me, because that song is amazing. And I'm gonna get into that more a little bit later when I talk about all the music. However, I will say that after Never Had a Friend Like Me and the intro of the Genie was out of the way, I kind of calmed down and I really accepted the Genie, like, as Will Smith, and it... Oh, Milo, what's up? You want to come up and work with me? Okay. I'm working, baby. Can I work, please? Please? Can I just do some work? This is what I have to put up with. And yes, Will Smith definitely brought his own touch and comedy to the film, and I absolutely loved it. It was very original and very modern, which I was glad, because that obviously can suit to new audiences as well, which I was really, really happy about. And I enjoyed that as well, because obviously the original, it's Robin Williams style, but then with Will it was more about the performance and also more of the performance traits that he has when he walks and talks and stuff like that, which I really, really enjoyed. And I loved how we saw Genie as more of a mentor in this film, and also a friend, but we saw more of the mentorship traits than we did in the original, because in the original, yes, we saw a little bit, but in this one it was very much almost like a teacher figure that we saw in this film, and I thoroughly enjoyed that about the character. Like, he was a friend, a mentor, and really just a really down-to-earth person, and I really, really liked that about the Genie, as like the whole like character was built on that, so I really, really enjoyed that. But I also really enjoyed the fact that they put in that he wanted to be human, he wanted to feel what it was like to have a family, like to have kids, etc. I really, really like that part, but also I love the fact that they put like that little Easter egg about Robin Williams and the rules of being the Genie. Like, I really, really like that. Like, when they pulled open the scroll and like the original Genie is there, the original Aladdin and stuff, I was like, oh my god, like, that's so like awesome that they did that. And it's just, it was great that they respected the original like amazing work that the animation was. Like, I really, really like that they did that. Okay, now Mina Massoud, I'm sorry if I said that wrong, as Aladdin. At first I was skeptical about his performance, specifically again because of the trailers and because we didn't see a lot from the trailers, so I was skeptical about his performance as Aladdin. However, I really enjoyed him as Aladdin. He was so good, and he really did play Aladdin very, very well. It was still that fun, loving, sensitive character, but we also got to see another side of Aladdin that we didn't see actually in the original film, which I love. We got to see like this really cocky, like really almost like a guy really full of himself. Like, I really like that about how we got to see that character, especially after, you know, like Jafar gets put in jail, and then Aladdin's like, oh, like, I can continue to be like this person, like, I don't need to go back and say that I'm Aladdin, it's only Prince Ali now, Aladdin's gone. And the genie's like, Aladdin, like, is you, like, you can't get rid of that. And then he was like, no, I'm going to be Prince Ali from now on, etc. Like, he was becoming something that he wasn't, and I really love the fact that they explored that. And specifically because, like, we saw how insecure Aladdin was, and we saw how, instead of feeling guilty, he kind of went into a really dark, like, area, which was, like, how far he was willing to go to keep Jasmine as the person he loves, and to keep lying and to keep the genie around just in case something did happen. And he does say, like, he believes, like, in fear that people like him have to pretend and wants to lie to continue to be happy. So I was like, whoa, they're going deep on this. Like, this was so good. I really enjoyed that. Also, I forgot to say, before he turned cocky, I really liked how they actually made him really clumsy. Like, when talking to the Sultan, when talking to Jasmine, I really liked that. It seemed like Aladdin was really suave and stuff in the original animation film, but, like, I felt like since Aladdin wouldn't really know how to really act in that sort of, like, I felt like it was perfect that they allowed Mina to really, like, explore that side of Aladdin where he didn't know how to act in front of royalty, which is why he kept calling, like, the Sultan His Highness and stuff. Instead, he should be calling him His Majesty. And I love that because it was like, he wouldn't know anything about living in a royal palace or actually who you call, like, what name, etc. So I loved that. And it was so funny just to watch and cringy, but it was like, it's perfect because Aladdin actually wouldn't know how to act in that situation, so that was perfect. And I loved Mina's performance in that part. It was so good. But again, I really loved how they explored Aladdin's dark side. Like, that was very interesting. And I knew obviously that he would obviously, like, realize, like, how bad that was, but in that moment I was like, wow, they're actually going there. Like, they're really going into detail about how he wants to continue lying and pretending and change his whole persona to be someone else just to be in love with someone. Like, that was so good. I really liked that. Now, going on to Naomi Scott as Jasmine, I know I said so much stuff about her, and I said, like, the way that she looked wasn't like Jasmine, and that she just didn't really look like she was up for the part. I take all of that back. She really channeled Jasmine so well. I loved her as Jasmine. I love how so much was added to her backstory and just her story in general. It was so good. And I love how they added more of a reason as to why she couldn't leave the palace, just beside the fact that she was a princess. They also put that factor in that her mother was killed, which I really liked, because it was like, yeah, she's a princess, she can't leave. That's a bit weird that she can't leave the palace just because she's a princess, because sometimes it is their duty to leave the palace. So that was a bit weird, but the fact that they put that in was like, it made more sense why she couldn't leave, because the mum died and the Sultan became really, like, obviously protective of her. So I was really happy that they put that in, because otherwise it just, even with the original, when you go back and watch it, you're like, that doesn't really make sense. Like, she probably could be able to leave if she wanted to, but yeah. But I'm really glad that they did put that in for this one. I was also really glad that they included that passing on of the crown to her, like that role that she wanted to take on. I really liked that. Like, I've heard that people didn't really like that. I don't know why. I really like that part that they put in, because, I mean, even if it was a male or female, like, heir, they'd still have a part in trying to, obviously, get that role. But the fact that the Sultan was not giving that to her, and that she was trying to, like, really, like, show that she was capable of it, I really liked that, and how they added that in. Because, like, you could see how hard she was working. Like, she had so much knowledge about Agrabah, and then she had knowledge about her mother's place of birth, and her, like, where she was from. And, like, you could see in many of the scenes, like, she's talking to the servants, she's talking to the guards, and she talks to the people, and she understands what they're all going through. However, she's not being heard. And this leads to the amazing song that she was given, Speechless. I'm going to go into that a bit further in the next part about the music again. However, I will say that the scene right after she sings the second part of Speechless is my favorite, because it just shows how much character development she has throughout the film to get to that point. But I will talk about that more in the music section. And I'm really glad, like, I know a lot of people had a lot of like hate for this. I don't know why, but people didn't like Dahlia as the servant and who helped Jasmine. However, I really like that, because in a way I always thought, like, why didn't Jasmine have any friends who were servants in the original film besides Raja? I mean, I love Raja, like, I'd have a tiger any day as my pet. However, it just made more sense that she'd have friends as servants as well. So I was really glad that they let that be more of a big part of this film, and that she could have like a bit of an outlet, but also she can gain knowledge from Dahlia about Agrabah and the people, etc. So I thought that was a really great add-on to the film as well. And I really liked Dahlia's character. She was hilarious, and I loved like her relationship with the genie. I really liked that. Okay, now I wanted to talk about the chemistry between Naomi and Mina as Jasmine and Aladdin, and they were amazing from start to finish. I loved them as Aladdin and Jasmine, and obviously the chemistry is a massive part of the film, obviously because it's like about Aladdin and Jasmine, and it most definitely was there. I love the banter between them from the beginning, when like they're obviously like talking about like the fact that like they both grew up without parents, well, Jasmine without a mother and Aladdin without a mother and a father. And then I loved also how like he sneaks into the palace and visits her, and then like they have like a little bit of banter about the fact that he stole the bracelet that belonged to her mom, but in reality it was Abu, and then they fought about that. That was really cute. I really liked that. And then like just the chemistry between them was really good. And especially when he comes back as Prince Ali and they talk, like he sneaks into the room and they start talking to each other before the whole new world scene, and it's just like, it was really cute, and I really liked them like as like a couple on screen. They were great. They were really good, and I loved the scenes that they had. And again, I really liked the added scenes that we got, especially again, we saw like the returning of the bracelet, Aladdin sneaking into the palace, and then like they get to talk more and they got to know each other more. But then again, when he comes back and sneaks into the room, just like I just said, I just love those scenes because it builds up that trust between the couple instead of having those other moments that are kind of really random in the original film. In this one, it was like that building of trust and like friendship kind of in a way at first, and then they kind of like get stronger and and they get to trust each other more. Yeah, I really loved those scenes. And I also really enjoyed how supportive Aladdin was of Jasmine when she started talking about the fact that she wanted to be Sultan and she wanted to protect and support her people, and he believed in her dream to be Sultan. And I believe like in a relationship it's great obviously to have that support of one another when someone's doing their own thing, specifically if it's work-wise or if it's like a passion project. Like if you have like someone who supports you and lets you like be yourself and go after something, it really helps in that relationship and it strengthens that bond. So I really loved how they included that, because that also strengthened the bond between Aladdin and Jasmine, and I really liked that aspect that was kind of like added in more depth into this film. That was really great. Okay, Marwan Kenzari as Jafar. Okay, I also had problems with him from the get-go. Like everyone knows this if you guys go back and watch like my reactions and my analysis of the teaser and the trailer. It wasn't as an actor. Like I've seen him in like TV shows and movies and he's a great actor, really good actor. It was mainly because of the fact that Jafar's age bracket just wasn't like that. I mean, Jafar's supposed to be older, that's why, from the original film, we know this. And like literally I remember when looking at him from the trailer before actually going and looking at his actual age, I thought he was in his 30s and he is in his 30s. And like that's like I felt like that was like too young, like specifically because he does look like a 30-year-old, kind of like either mid-30s or late 30s in the actual film of Aladdin. So that's why I was like, he doesn't look that old. But at the same time I was like, okay, we'll give it a chance. Like I went to this film with an open mind, which is probably why I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would, because I was like, you know what, I need to go and see it before I judge it more, and we'll see. And obviously I really enjoyed it. Marwan did an incredible job with Jafar though. I really enjoyed his performance as Jafar. Like I loved how he would get angry at like certain points, or it was like as if he was like bottling up all this anger and it was building and it was just like stop because someone would kind of like get in his face and be like Jafar or something, and then he'd have to hold it back and you could see like he's holding back. That was really well done. That was great. I loved those moments, and I loved the backstory that they gave to Jafar because it also gave that connection that he has with Aladdin a little bit more. Like, they were able to kind of get on the same level and be like, oh my god, like, we're from the same kind of like story. Like, the fact that they also allowed him to kind of be a pickpocket, like, from the streets, and also kind of like a street rat, also gave a lot of meaning and a lot of more depth to Jafar's story. And it also gave his story a lot more depth because, again, like, this is a line from the movie I wrote down as, like, literally as soon as he said it, I wrote it down, and he said, "You're the most powerful man in the room, or you're nothing." So that gave a lot more depth to his story, because obviously, like, when you pickpocket, he says it, like, you can, like, you get an apple, you can get fed, or something like that, and then, like, you steal a state, and then you become a statesman, I think it's like that, something like that. I can't remember all the lines because the movie's not out on DVD yet, so I can't, like, review it as much as I can. But then obviously it shows that Jafar's dream kind of became bigger and bigger and bigger, and his hunger for power became stronger and stronger as well every time he obviously stole. So that really adds more depth to his story, and I really, really like that. And I love the fact that it wasn't just a notion just to show that Jafar had a connection with Aladdin, but it actually paid off later when we saw him steal from Aladdin. Especially because it was one of Aladdin's weakest moments, and when he was like he was full of himself, and he was like, he didn't like worry about like anyone else getting in his way and stuff. Like, it was perfect, because it was like any other rich person would have done that as well in Agrabah, like when like getting pushed, he would have been like, hey, and that's what Aladdin did, and he fell for it in a way because Jafar stole the lamp from him and disappeared, because that's how quick they are. And we see Aladdin do that like at the beginning of the film, and he pickpockets, and he's quick, and he's instantly moving so they don't know what's going on, and then like Jafar did it to Aladdin, so that was great. I really, really loved how that aspect of Jafar's story paid off, and we got to see that happening. That was great. I loved how they added more depth to the actual story, like with the different like countries and lands that were involved, and they also like involved a bit more politics into it, which was great. It wasn't too much over the top where it was like, I can't understand this, oh my god. It was very, very simple so you could understand. However, I will say, from the story that we got from Jafar, I felt like, obviously, like, because Jafar says, like, with his experience as, like, obviously a pickpocket, and his experience in politics, etc., like, he's always wanted to be the most powerful man in the room. And in a way, I was like, yes, a 30-year-old could have, like, a mid-30, late 30s-year-old Jafar could say that, but also, I felt like if they had gotten an older guy to actually play the part, it would have made a little bit more sense as well, even though he would have been a lot older. It still would have made sense, because it was like he's been waiting for this moment, and it's built up to that. Because I felt like Jafar looked around only like a few years older than Aladdin. However, Marwan did an amazing job as Jafar. Don't get me wrong, I love him as Jafar. He did really, really great job. But if they had cast someone older, I felt like it would have been good as well. But I will say that I did enjoy Jafar's character and the performance that was given to us by Marwan so much. It was really, really well done. I'm quickly going to touch upon Navid Negaban. I'm really sorry, I can't say his name properly. He played the Sultan, and I'm going to touch on his role just a little bit, because again, his role wasn't too big in this film, as much like the same as it was in the original. It wasn't a massive part. However, I did love the fact that they allowed him to give that ownership of the role of Sultan to Jasmine, because it also gave a punch to when he gives her permission to be the Sultan and to obviously marry who she wants to, because in the original film it was like the Sultan was only doing it so Jasmine could be happy and be with the one that she loves. But in this one, it was more like she earned the role from showing that she could be Sultan. She knew the people, she knew the servants, she knew the guards, she knew how politics worked. But then it also gave her that power to obviously say, like, she can marry who she wants, and then she marries Aladdin. I felt like that gave it more depth and more, like, of a proper way to obviously let her choose who she wants to marry. So I really, really liked that, how they added that into his part of the story. Okay, now we're gonna jump right into the music of this film that I loved. The music was so good. However, I will say that I knew, because Will Smith was gonna be in it, I knew that there was going to be some sort of little R&B play into it. There would be a little bit, not too much, and I was hoping there wouldn't be too much, but there would be some sort of aspect that was going to be R&B and added into the film, because I did not listen to the soundtrack before I went to see the film. Like, everyone was saying, listen to it, but I was like, no, I'm going to watch the film without listening to anything, because my biggest mistake, I think, with Beauty and the Beast, when the remake came out, I listened to the soundtrack before I went and saw the film. So, and majorly to the ones that I loved the most, and that kind of ruined the surprise in a way for me. Like, even with A Whole New World, I did not listen to it when it came out. I only listened to the Zayn Malik version because I love Zayn. However, I did not listen to the movie version. The only part that I had heard was from the trailer. So I went in with the rest of the song and the rest of the soundtrack without, like, knowing what was going on. So let's just go through all the music now. Now, Arabian Nights is such a beautiful song, and I have some weird memories connected to the song, and mainly from primary school, because I played one of 3 genies and I had to wear baggy pants like the genie, and I just have so many memories from it. But I'm mainly good memories because I used to watch the movie over and over and over again when I was a kid, and this song is just so beautiful, and I was like, please don't ruin it, please don't do anything bad to it. However, they didn't, and it was such a good opening. I loved Will Smith's voice in this. It was very, very, like, calm and beautiful, and then I loved how, like, the music just, like, swelled at the part where it's like, Arabian Nights. Oh, it was so good. I loved it. It was so good. And, like, I was listening to the lyrics, and then when I came home, obviously, to analyze the music more, I listened to the song again, and I realized that if you guys have watched Aladdin, The Return of Jafar, the second movie of the original animated film, in that opening, there are a few lines that they actually added into this version, and I remember, like, listening back to it, I was like, wait, have I heard that part before? And then I realized that they had taken some of that opening and just switched the lines around, and they added that in, and I was like, that's so smart. I really, really enjoyed the actual setup of the scene that they added with the song. Like, they started off obviously on the boat with Will Smith, and then, like, you go through Agrabah, like, with Aladdin and Abu, and you don't get to see all their faces. It's just like a swift, like, move away. And I love how the camera just, like, moves, like, through the town. It pulls up, pulls out, go to the palace, and then you see the Sultan, you see Jasmine, you see Raja, and then you go, and then you follow Iago. That was great. And I love the fact that they also added the Cave of Wonders scene to that particular part, because then it kind of got it out of the way. It wasn't like we had to be, like, informed of what was going on. It was like we watched and we listened, and, you know, like, we heard, like, what Jafar was doing, and then it just straight away went to one jump ahead in the next part. And I really, really enjoyed that, instead of, like, having that major, like, setup and then, like, having to go through the scene and then having to go through the whole city again in the next scene, which is the one jump ahead scene. I really like that they just put the whole introduction into the song of Arabian Nights and they left it there. That was great. Now we're gonna jump into one jump ahead. This was the first time that we got to listen to Mina's voice as a whole. It was really, really, really good. And surprisingly, he sounded a lot like the original Aladdin from the original animated film. So I was like, oh my god, like, he sounds really good. And when you actually go back and, like, compare the two, it actually sounds quite alike. So I was really, really surprised, and they did such an amazing job with that. They really, really did a good job. Again, I didn't really enjoy the way they filmed it, and I also didn't really enjoy the reprise. They did 2 reprises of this song, and to be honest, I really didn't like either of them. The first one, though, where it's like, riff raff street rat, I don't buy that song. I felt like it was very, like, dragged out compared to the original, instead of, like, because with the first one in the original animated film, it's like it's all together, and then it's just so beautiful because it's just like a soft violin, really soft harp, and just really, really soft, beautiful music. And even in this one, it was good, except it was just very dragged out and just felt also very jarring. And I was like, I'm not a fan of it, to be honest. And even with the third reprise that we got, I was like, to be honest, that wasn't needed at all. Like, in my opinion, I didn't really think it was needed. Like, he literally could have talked the scene out if he wanted to, but he didn't. But yeah, I mean, There's always going to be like that one song that's not really the best, and I really think the third reprise of One Jump Ahead was not needed at all. Now, I know the first part of Speechless comes after One Jump Ahead, however, I'm not going to jump into that right now because I want to talk about that along with the part 2 of the song, so I'm going to leave that until part 2 comes up in the film, because I was doing all the songs in order of when they appear in the film, so I'm not going to talk about Speechless just yet. Okay, now, Never Had a Friend Like Me. Oh, this song is one of my favorite songs, like, from the original, and this version is one of my favorites as well. It was so good, and again, it was because Will Smith brought his own flavor to the song and just all of his performance tactics into this song, and it was so good. Like, I was just, because I was really scared, like, it was his intro and this song that was making me nervous, because I was like, okay, it's coming up, and it came up, and I kind of calmed down. I was like, okay, you gotta calm down. You gotta just listen to the song and watch the scene and see how it comes out. So then I just sat there watching it, and it was so good, and I loved it mainly because it was so unique the way Will had done it, and because it was like so his style. So I was glad like he hadn't copied Robin's like whole performance, because mainly with Robin's performance, again, it was mainly about like the different like octaves and like different like characters he could create from his voice. But with Will, again, it was all about his performance and how he moved and how like he brought his own little like dances and moves to it. Like, I loved that. And again, the R&B part in this song was not that long, and I remember when it came up I was like, oh my god, okay, and I really liked it. Like, I got chills when it came up, and I was like, okay, please don't be too long, please don't be too long, please don't be too long, and it wasn't. It was literally like only like 5-10 seconds at least, and I really enjoyed it. Like, it was great. Like, it added that little like part of like Will Smith's own style into it, so I enjoyed that part, and it was great. And the whole scene as a whole was really, really great, because yeah, it was just really good. And also, music wise, specifically with the instruments, I loved how the instruments kind of like were a lot louder in this song, and also they were like highlighted, so you could probably hear like the clarinet, you could hear like the trumpets and like the trombone, like all these different instruments. You could hear them so much better in this song. I feel it was so good, and I just kept getting chills because like it was such a good song, and you could hear all the jazz like elements coming in. Oh, it was so good. I really like this song. Okay, now Prince Ali was next. And I must say that it practically was the same as the original. However, there was the difference between Robin's performance and Will's performances. So again, Robin's performance was mainly highlighting his voice and also like the different characters he created throughout that whole song. But then with Will, it was like him singing and a little bit of rap again. But then it was also because he was showing off his performance skills and also his MC traits. So when I went back and listened, it was like, he was like, okay, all the guys go blah 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 blah, and then there's obviously the guys sing or like rap, and then the girls like, and then he was like, okay, girls go, and then blah 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 blah. And I was like, oh my god, like that's so good. Like, even as we were watching it, it was great, and I loved how they did that. That was really good. And and this is my favorite part, because it was like that cue of the music from the Sultan, and then it just goes dead, and then it's like that slow progression, and then it just builds up. Oh, it was so good. It was really great, particularly because I love that song as well. Like, because I love those jazzy numbers in this movie. Like, they're my favorite. So I was really glad that and Never Had a Friend Like Me was done really well. Like, I loved those. It was great. Okay, now the one song that's obviously had a lot of anxiety from everyone, because I mean, this song is one of the greatest love songs from the Disney franchise ever, and Alan Menken is a genius. He obviously wrote the song, and it's such a great song. And again, I was worried because, you know, it's a whole new world, and it literally is the anthem of Aladdin. So I was like, please do it right. And Naomi's and Mina's voices just blended like honey, and it was so good. I really liked it, and I remember just sitting there and listening and be like, oh my god, he's so good. And again, the chemistry that they had during this whole scene was great. And we obviously had seen this relationship building and building and building throughout this whole film, and it kind of like hit this pinnacle obviously when the song came up. And it also really like showed how much the characters had already built, and it showed also how much the characters had already built from the beginning of the film. So it was great because specifically from the voices we got to see obviously Mina as Aladdin, aka Prince Ali, and the gentleness he showed off in his voice, like especially at the beginning of the I can show you the world, like it's so beautiful and it's so gentle as well. He's like bringing her into this new experience and showing it to her slowly, and like there's almost like a nervousness and at the beginning, and then as the song progresses, specifically in the chorus for Aladdin's solo, it like that confidence like progresses as he sings, and it's so good. And I just love that when like a performer or like a character shows that off, and I love how they paid that attention to detail to it, because I mean like it just shows the progression in a song, like how much that can change for a character, like so I really like that. And also I really loved how Naomi channeled the emotions that Jasmine would have had in that moment, specifically because there's that moment where she starts singing and it's like that freedom, like she's just like letting it go and she's singing like a whole new world, and like she's finally seeing the world. And like there are so many moments where she's like in shock, like she's looking at all the scenery, she's like, oh my god, I'm seeing this for the first time. And there's that one moment where she's singing Indescribable Feeling, and Naomi had her eyes closed, and then she looks at Aladdin and Aladdin's already looking at her, like, oh my god, I loved that moment, because I went and saw the film like twice now, and like every time I see that scene I'm like, oh my god, it's so good. But also it's like that excitement from both of them, like they're with the person that they like and like building emotions between them. So it was great, and you can see like that emotion building until the very last line where it's like, for you and me. And then they both just turn and look at each other, and they just like, it's kind of like that realization that, oh my god, I really like this person. And it was great because this whole song just showed that progression in character development and character relationship building. So I really liked that, and they really paid attention to detail when filming this scene. So I really loved it, and really kudos to Guy Ritchie, because it can take a lot to do this sort of stuff, and especially because this is like the remake of such a loved movie. They did this really well, so thank you for doing it so well. Okay, now Speechless. This song I was so worried about because of the fact that it was an original song for Jasmine, and like, to be honest, with some of the original songs that we've been getting from the remakes, some of them are good, some of them are not the best. So I was a bit worried. I was like, okay, let's see how this goes. It's probably gonna, let's just go and see what it's like. So obviously when the song came up and in the movie, I really enjoyed it, and it was an acoustic version of it as well, like for the first part of Speechless. And I'm just gonna say quickly, I really loved the song, and I loved how it shows the character development of Jasmine. Now I'm gonna go into that part a bit later, but I'm gonna start off talking about part one. So I love how it shows how, and it's specifically placed after the scene where she's silenced by both her father and Jafar, and how she actually is speechless. Like she's been shut down by both these two men, and she just doesn't know how to talk, and like, not that she doesn't know how to talk, but she's just like, she feels like they're right, that she has to be silent. And she's provoked obviously by Jafar, both in private and in front of her father. So it shows that she's unsure if she's capable of being Sultan, or if she's able to actually talk up to either of them. However, it's great, and I love this because at the very end it's like, I know that I won't go speechless. So she knows that one day she'll be able to build that confidence and one day speak up and not be speechless. So I really like that part of part one. Like, it was great. It was showing that moment where she wasn't able to actually not be speechless. So it was great, like that character build up, specifically because after that we see her character progress so much, and then we see that get paid off when part two of Speechless comes up. And part two of Speechless, I had tears like running down my cheeks, because it was such an emotional song and so beautiful, and just the way Naomi's singing it was so well. And I loved how the scene was filmed. It's so beautiful because in a way it's like, I don't know, I connected with this scene on so many levels, and I will go into that in a bit, but I want to talk about how, like, obviously the character, like, progresses in this particular scene. Like, she realizes that she is able to be heard, that she should be heard, and that she has a right to stand up for herself against Jafar, specifically because she's standing up for what she loves, her country, her people, and her father. And obviously the people who work in the palace, like specifically the guards in this particular scene. And she realizes, and it's through the past few scenes of the movie that we've seen that she's capable of becoming Sultan, and she sees that she's capable of becoming Sultan, and that also comes from her relationship with Aladdin. Like, she gets that support from him, and she realizes that, like, she can do it. Like, she can prove that she is worthy of, like, proving everyone wrong, and that she is capable of being Sultan. And this influences the scene she has with Akeem, and it's so great because, like, you see, like, it's all this built up from part 1 of Speechless, and then throughout the whole film, and then you get part 2 of Speechless, and then it all pays off when she has that scene with Akeem, and she tells him, like, you don't need to prove that you're worthy or get the approval of other people to know that you're capable. You are capable of making the right decision. And, like, it was such a great scene, and it just proves how much great writing there was in this film, because there actually really was. And I was, like, blown away by the whole character development of Jasmine in this film, because they did such a great job. And again, I want to go back to the actual structure of this film and the way it was filmed. Like, and this is what I love about Guy Ritchie. He has such a very unique view of scenes that sometimes, like, really do, like, capture reality so beautifully. And this was one of those scenes where, like, it really does feel like it was, like, it feels like you could be in that moment as well. Like, anybody could be in that moment and it would feel like that. Because, like, I mean, for example, and I think a lot of people who I've talked to about this song as well agree, because, like, it's like anybody, I guess, because when you're speechless, you want to stand up for yourself, you want to stand up for what you believe in. However, it's like there's all these thoughts going through your head, like, it's like, I'm capable, but it's like, I want to stand up for this, I want to stand up for blah blah blah, like, etc. However, it's just like, you can't say it because you're scared of, like, the approval that you might get from other people. It's like scared of, like, what other people will say, or the rejection, etc. So in the way that was filmed was so great, because in that moment of emotion, like, sometimes when you're in front of a person, like, hearing them say that you're not capable or something, or you're not, like, able to do something and you want to stand up, you kind of get that, like, that moment where it's like all the emotions are building in your head or, like, in your body, and it's like that adrenaline is building through your body. So I felt like that was perfect the way that they filmed it. It was like that moment where it's like everything freezes, and it's like you're in that headspace and you can just see, like you're thinking, and it's like all these thoughts are going through your head. It's like, I can do it, and then you finally either say it or you don't. So it's like, it was just perfect the way that they filmed it. I just felt like it really is like how you would feel in reality when you're going to stand up to someone. It's like all that emotion builds, and I really loved how they captured it. It was so beautiful, and Naomi in this scene was so good, so beautifully done. Like, she captured that whole moment so beautifully. I was bawling my eyes out when watching the scene twice, and it was so good. And really, kudos to her, but also to Guy Ritchie, because to have that vision was so great, and I really feel like he captured it really well. And I did want to compare it to a particular song from another remake, which was Forevermore from Beauty and the Beast. I wanted to compare it because I felt like Speechless was a much stronger song, and very well done in this case for this film, because, for example, with Beauty and the Beast, and this is my opinion and you can disagree with me, but for example, with Beauty and the Beast, I felt like that song came out of nowhere. Like, to be honest, we didn't get to see much perspective from the Beast. We did get to see more of his backstory, which I'm very grateful for. However, we didn't get to see a lot from his own perspective. And then suddenly we got the song Forevermore, and I was like, wait, what? I was really confused when that came up in the movie. And I'm not saying Forevermore is a bad song. It was more that we didn't get much of that character development for the Beast's character for that to really be like a massive moment for him. For me, it just felt like I felt like the song was great. Beautiful song, and I love that song. However, I just felt like in the movie, it just didn't fit in for me. Like, I felt like there wasn't much of a purpose for that. However, with Jasmine, we saw like that progression for her, like that character development for her, because we saw her perspective a lot from this film. And we got to see like the build up from, for example, Speechless Part 1, and then we saw Speechless Part 2, and there was that awesome like character arc that we saw for her. So that's why I felt like Speechless is a better song and like showed greater character development than it did for The Beast in Beauty and the Beast remake. And I felt like that's why this song was much stronger. I just wanted to show the comparison because like I really enjoyed this song, and I did enjoy Forevermore. However, I just felt like it lacked that character development for the Beast. And Speechless is definitely one of my favorite songs that came out of this film. Apart from Never Had a Friend Like... Well, actually, this whole soundtrack was great. It was only the reprises that I didn't really enjoy. However, as a whole, I really did enjoy all the music. It was a great soundtrack that they did, and I really loved how they worked with the music that they had. Okay, so I've come to the end of my notes about this amazing movie, and I definitely have to say as a whole... Oh, hello. Hello? Yeah? Mwah. I'm nearly done, Baba. Can I just finish my work, please? So I will say that Aladdin 2019 definitely lived up to the original film and was a massive justice that they did for the original film. It was very well done. I absolutely love the cast. I do have my cons about this. However, they weren't major cons, and they were just very minor, and this movie totally deceived me from the beginning with the trailers and the teasers. This movie really was very well done. I'm definitely going to give it an 8.5 for being a great movie. Yes, there are still a few cons that come into play with the score that I'm giving it. However, it still was a great film, so don't get me wrong when I give it a score of 8.5, because it really was a great film. So thank you guys so much for watching this review of Aladdin. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please give a like, subscribe, comment, and tell me your thoughts on the Aladdin movie if you have enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was such a great film, and it really did justice, and they did work very well with this film. It was very well done, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm probably going to go and see it again for cinemas because it was that good. Please remember to leave a comment below also with the movies that you want me to review. There are plenty of more reviews that I want to do, and I really want to go and see a few more movies before I go back to uni, so please leave those suggestions down below, and I will definitely take them into consideration. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Crazy Fangirl out.